think
If they're willing to do that, they can start setting up a town, and then maybe women will start going there.
Saul, are you picturing the scene from Beauty and the Beast where they're like combing out the beast's hair?
I'm imagining like a reality show where it's like they have to make a werewolf dateable.
So adjustments are going to have to be made on both sides, because even if you get the Celtistravi to agree, like even poor peasant girls would prefer to marry poor peasant boys.
Yeah.
So there is going to have to be some element on your end of, you're my subjects, this is what's happening.
Evie would not coerce anyone to do something like this. That's just not in her character.
I think that's where Ekon comes in the idea that an Aethar would come in and not facilitate. What's the word I'm looking for here? Discuss this, look for matches, that kind of thing. I don't know, like if I'm not trying to put words in Ekon's mouth here. I'm trying to, but that's where, like that kind of situation where we would take the time to look for people who would be willing to do this, and maybe
we need to keep in mind. We need to keep in mind that this is a very dangerous world, especially for young women, and we are offering them a chance to be with strong, protective things that can train them and take care of them.
Protective things.
Don't undersell that.
Okay, so Evie is not comfortable at all framing this as in any way coercive. Like, that's just wrong. The people are going to look at that and say, what is our Duchess doing? She's gone mad. She's siding with werewolves over her own people.
Well,
I'm not doing that.
Some segment of them already believe that because your alliance with the Celtistravi is already known. Some people already feel that way.
So,
here's my response to that, me as the player. Edmont has no qualms about it.
So, like Jeannie's, she's like, I'm not talking about coercion. I'm talking about doing this thoroughly and correctly. And it is going to be work, and it's going to require work on our part, for us to convince the parties involved, and then to go through and find suitable candidates. This is no different, in a lot of ways, than arranged marriages where we're from, in the sense that it's not a marriage necessarily for love, but for gain. So we have a peasant girl who has the chance to go off and own land, to own their house. The only it's there's details to be hashed out, of course, but I'm not proposing coercion. I just want everybody to be clear that I'm proposing that we find a site, and we do the central thing, and then once a month or whatever, the Celtistravi, on their rounds, stop at the village instead of some other cave. And
I feel like the first thing we should do is, why don't we have some women meet the Celtistravi and get their opinions?
That's not going to work. They're out in a cave. Victor?
Come to the city for a meeting to walk around if we invite them.
Now, here's Evie's perspective. The Celtistravi can build a civilized town, they could build a civilization instead of living in caves. And if they do that, maybe women will start to want to marry them.
That's not going to happen. That's in 1,000 million, 1 trillion years will never happen. This is going to require intercession on our part and effort on our part. We cannot put it on the Celtistravi. So, by saying, going to the Celtistravi and saying, you got to do this, or to get the women's, they're going to just shake their head and walk away, and the situation will not get resolved.
But then they're going to go extinct, and that's their problem.
Is that Evie's final word on the matter?
I mean, I am extraordinarily uncomfortable with the idea of basically trying to sell or bribe women into going to be with the Celtistravi.
That's why I think we should just introduce women to the Celtistravi. And
this is out of character. This is a medieval society, and even the society our characters came from, this kind of stuff happens.
I mean, Ekon's ultimate point is that peasants aren't currency, and aside from that, he doesn't have a strong
No,
voice
and
of the
So,
official.
I want it to be clear that Jeannie is not advocating selling anybody.
Yes,
I just
yeah,
want
I know.
no,
I
no,
agree. I'm just letting you know, like that's where Ekon's coming from. Like where your church authority starts and ends is Ekon is very clear that peasants are not currency.
I'll let
Vic-
Ekon
Victor's-
make this decision. Has Ekon mediated this sort of thing before in the terms
Not
of...
between different like races.
Well, no,
Within
but
human
noble house.
society, sure.
Okay.
Also, Ekon was 15. Are you sure he did?
Yeah.
Ekon was a fully ordained Aethar. He's
Okay.
could be given any duty. So one common way to do this, which is a sort of like there's a noble house on the verge of extinction if they don't have an heir within the next couple of years. If an appeal to the church is made or if the church intervenes, one way that they could resolve the issue is to find a commoner to basically order to marry into this noble house. The benefit to that commoner's family is that they gain some semblance of nobility. They gain a name that comes with wealth and status. At the end of the day, this would not be a put feelers out and see who bites kind of situation. At the end of the day, the church would approach a variety of families and find somebody who's willing to make this marriage.
yes.
Yeah. And Victor's
You can't
point is that-
offer these peasant women nobility per se, but the idea of having their own land to work instead of working Evie's land outside of these walls and integrating with a, like Victor pointed out, powerful creatures that can protect their own bloodline going forward.
Ravenloft is a scary place. There are probably plenty of peasant women that don't have any prospects and are looking for something, or whose families are looking for something. And this is a way to sort of fill that niche.
So there's gonna have to be some convincing, but it's not gonna be unless you order it to happen, Evie. It's not like looking at it as though it's coercion it doesn't have to be that way if you don't want it to be.
I feel, it's not, but if the person in charge of your duchy comes up to you and says, I need people to do that, that's a lot of pressure.
Then you don't do it. I can do it. Like,
And
I can
Edmont does it.
Yeah, Edmont and I can do it. Like, no offense, Edmont, but you're a little intense, so like it'd probably be better if like you didn't do it alone.
Well, Edmont is perfectly positioned to work the other half of the situation.
Right. Yeah, it's not, you don't have to do it. Like Orson has been telling you don't have to take everything on your hands. Like if you feel like your presence would be putting on be an undue, like an extra lever that you don't want to apply to these less fortunate peasants, then take yourself out of the equation.
Yeah, I think that may be the best move there. Something where if it's an arrangement, but they enter into it willingly.
Evie, no one is talking about forcing them to do anything.
I think this is partly like, this sounds partly like Evie's like hang up on the arranged marriage before we got
this is definitely a big part of where she's approaching this from. Like, how would I feel if someone came to me with this?
So it would be considered odd by other like dukes and landowners and things in Darkhan that Evie has never arranged a marriage that could benefit her her villages or whatnot. The fact that she's never done that since she's been here would be considered a little odd if it were known amongst the rest of the upper crust of Darkhan. Like, Lord Randus was arranging all kinds of marriages.
Yeah, Evie just doesn't. She doesn't like the idea of arranged marriages, so it's not something she would think to do, because she would hate it if someone made her do it. She hated that her sister was going to make her do it.
Okay. But, so the decision we're coming down on then is that it's worth the effort to try to make this integration happen?
Yeah.
I'm willing for
Yes.
that, yeah. As long as it's clear, the Celtistravi have to make concessions too. They have to change.
Yeah, this is not going to be a thing.
And the way she persists is, they may like the change. They may prefer it to the way they've lived.
And to be clear, they've already made this change. They have not raided any of your villages. They haven't overstepped their boundaries. They have kept their... they bent their knee, and they've kept their end of that agreement for the past several years.
Yeah, and I acknowledge that.
Well, how about this? McDohl, or excuse me, Edmont, you be the you be. Why don't we do it this way? We'll split the work. You be the what is the word I'm looking for here? Someone who speaks for somebody.
Liaison.
You be the advocate for the Kelterstravi. I'll be the advocate for any village girls. And Ekon, if he is willing, can be a neutral arbiter. Because I trust Ekon to do that. Like even with you, even if you're involved in a situation like this, I trust Ekon to do that.
Okay.
What do you?
Much lively debate was had.
Yeah, I'm completely fine with this.
I'll go talk to my families and see who's willing.
Please don't.
Yeah. Victor's the last person I want having anything to do with this.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Ekon's willing to do that.
Okay. Ekon.
Oh, ye of justified little faith.
One of the
Victor's actually good at persuasion.
one of the cards in your deck would be, and it couldn't happen overnight, but if the people in your village, the people that listen to you at Mass, could be made to understand that being a werewolf doesn't necessarily mean you are a vicious monster forever, which is how they look at it. Those are seeds that you could plant. You are positioned uniquely amongst your party to start turning that crank.
Okay.
If it's going to be the church's stance that werewolves are not unseelie entities and they're not necessarily monsters. Was it ever made public that Edmont is a werewolf? Do people in the village know that?
I suspect there are probably people who suspect it by now. I
Well,
don't know that we've
I've
ever
been
announced
doing a lot to cover that up, though. Yeah, I think just monitoring when he is and is not there. Like,
I mean, the
Yeah,
peasantry
so-
suspects a lot of things. Just law of averages, one or two of them are going to be right.
Peasantry
Yeah.
suspects that one of us probably bathes in blood.
Brick. One thing Victor's going to do as Edmund is making this mind. Okay, what's the word? Brainwashing. As he's brainwashing these people to the goodness of werewolves, Victor is going to start offering invitations to some of the Keltistravi to come hunting with the people in the village to kind of show them, look, Keltistravi are good at hunting. They can help us. There's a lot we can learn from them.
Okay.
I mean, can we say before he does that we have to lay the plan. We have to lay those series of events out here for the Keltistravi, I think, and get them to sign on before we manipulate them into anything.
Well, the good news is before you have any chance to actually do anything in any direction, something horrible is going to happen. That's going to get you guys all sidetracked.
Of course.
Well,
More suicide bombers. Let's go.
Brick Road, why do you always got to be like this?
Because I'm a DM. Would you rather me?
I don't understand. I don't understand the answer.
Next time I run a campaign, there will be no plot points ever.
Good.
It'll just be a random walk of a campaign. That's great.
No more events.
I'm kidding, of course.
So we're gonna. The next campaign is a mega dungeon.
No traps, no monsters. Evie,
Yes.
after the 14th day, so at the end of all your downtime, you've had this discussion about the Keltistravi. A third group of your knights come back. How large are these groups, by the way? Are you sending them out? Are we talking about like pairs of knights or 10 at a time, or what are we doing?
I mean, I don't know exactly how many knights there are. I think Jeannie threw around the number like 18 to start with because that's how much gear we had.
Okay.
I can tell you exactly how much gear I made. I have it written down.
But like, are you sending them out in like 2 patrols of 9 or 6 patrols of 3 or?
I think divide them into probably groups of 3.
Okay.
So let's see.
Yeah, one of these patrols comes back with a prisoner in tow. A man wearing red robes. Found alone in the woods by himself. At a disheveled campsite. The fire was already cold. who had called out to them. They don't think they would have spotted him from the road if he had not called out. But he did, and they went to investigate, and they saw he was he surrendered a very ornately carved staff that is covered in religious iconography that, when shown to you, you'll immediately recognize as a spell focus, a holy symbol, more to the point. The man is relatively aged. He has scraggly gray hair and kind eyes. He called out to them and surrendered. Not knowing, he says, whether the knights were charged to execute him on sight or to bring him in as a prisoner. And one of your knights confesses to you that if he had not said that out loud, he might have felt compelled to kill him in the field, considering one of his brothers in arms was just burned to death recently.
Mm-hmm. Evie nods.
What do you want done with this prisoner when they bring him back?
Well, I want him searched to make sure he doesn't have anything. Does he have like the magical ability on him that he would explode? We check him for that.
Oh, they can't do that in the field, but you can do that when you bring him back.
Okay, so they're still out in the field, but I'm hearing word of this.
No, you don't hear any word of it until they actually get back. I mean, one of your servants tells you, "Hey, the men at the gate, one of your patrols came back, and this is what they brought with them."
Okay, so when they're at the gate, I would have Jeannie or Ekon check for that immediately, just to make sure.
Yeah.
And then I would ask him why he surrendered.
So where are you asking him? Like, where are you having him brought?
Well, at the gate, if we determine that it's safe to bring him into the town, then we probably put him in the dungeon and then talk to him there.
Okay. So if you're going to put him into a dungeon as he's being taken down, he makes a request. He asks whether he could have a bench or a stool in his cell. He could not be placed into a room with no artifice.
He's an old man. I would allow him a chair.
A chair?
A bench, whatever he.
And
Chair is more that he asked for, so you're over delivering. Okay.
I'm sure we have spare chairs.
So yeah, that's the state of things. As far as searching him in the field, he had a handful of coins, his holy symbol in the form of a walking staff, a wooden stick covered in ornate religious iconography that all conforms to the Etherine faith in general, but more specifically the Hand of Fire cult. No other weapons beyond that. Good pair of walking boots and clothes and things. They thoroughly searched him in the field. And you guys confirm after he's brought to town, once one of you have a chance to look him over and do detect magic nonsense. No, he's not primed to explode. He's not holding a fireball spell in his gut the way that some of the other rank and file were.
So, Ekon, I'm sure you want to talk to this man.
Yeah.
So, Ekon and I'll probably go have a word with him.
Just the two of you?
Yeah,
For now, unless Victor wants to go.
Yeah, Victor's gonna go.
Okay.
so
Whoever wants to come can come, but Ekon,
Yeah.
I figure, would be the most important person to have.
I mean, just so it's for everybody. I had made 16 sets of armor, so there were 16 knights to start with. One of them died. There are currently probably 15 left.
15 plus Orson.
Well, yeah, Orson got separate.
Mm.
Well, Orson's not going to be doing these patrols in the field unless you specifically tell me he is.
No, his job is usually going to keep him in town. He's protecting the town. Protecting us.
But
These
he
are
can't
meat
protect you from yourselves.
No, he can't.
No.
Like, I don't know if you were paying attention, Evie, but all your family members are conspiring to set up like this like slave trading ring with the werewolves. It's bizarre. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's not what we're doing.
Where do you want this guy interrogated? You're going to go down into his cell?
Yeah.
Like,
And all five of you
He's
are going?
yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming into his cell. A simple chair, wooden chair, was brought down and placed in the cell. Typically, all he would have in here is rushes on the floor and maybe a chamber pot, unless you... But yeah, he's sitting in the chair. And he opens his eyes as you enter. And he smiles sadly. And he bids you welcome. He's speaking for Niskin, but he's not a natural speaker. This is a Darkanese man who has learned your language.
What's your story, old man?
He holds his arms out in front of you, in front of him, as though to show that he's not posing a threat. Did you allow him to keep his robe, or did you confiscate that?
We probably would have given him different clothes to wear.
So he's got...
I mean, I would have confirmed that it wasn't magical and let him keep it, yeah.
It's not magical, so if you let him keep it, he's still wearing it. He tells you that he has foregone the name of his fathers, and he's taken the name Friend. He hopes you will call him that.
We'll see, I guess.
He tells you that he's come here to... well, actually, he gives you gratitude that your men did not kill him in the field. This was a concern amongst his people that that's what would happen.
Normally, the men who wear the robes, such as the ones you're wearing, are notably not our friends.
They tend to explode.
What were you doing calling out for these men?
He said that he had heard the recent troubles that Silverbow had with some of their higher acolytes inside the Hand of Fire. And he says that these stories have troubled him. He says that he believes, though misguided, you are good people, that you are reasonable, that you are men and women of faith, and that you could be made to see reason. And that's
what
why
is
he
your
has come.
position within the Hand of Fire in your relationship to Kristen?
He says he is merely friend.
So, you do realize that where we're from, this is a death cult that you're a part of. They go around and they basically commit murder in the name of air.
He tells you, and there's a sad tinge to his voice. He says, alas, as Aethar Christen has come to finally accept, after all of his turmoils, you are not where you are from. You are where I am from.
Yeah.
I feel like you came here with a message for us.
He shakes his head. There's no message. Aethar Christen advised against this pilgrimage.
Surely you have goals, motivations?
He nods. He says he's come here because he believes he can make you see reason.
What is your reason? Like, what do you want to make us see?
I know it is difficult that the words that we use to describe each other are not particularly constructive. Heretics, disbelievers, cultists, fanatics. One of us calls the other. Both of us can't be right. And yet, bloodshed. I don't see this as a productive use of either of our time.
It's not.
I
So-
will note that your Aethar Christen has chosen to employ bloodshed first.
We don't need to get into that. Let's hear what this man has to say.
I just want that fact stated.
He begins to list several well-known escapades of House Veritas from your earlier days in Darkhan, where House Veritas has indeed shed a lot of blood. The story in particular of what happened at the Squelcher Lord's Hall is known far and wide across Darkhan at this point.
That was not under the auspices of a religious schism.
He nods and says, I understand, as does Aethar Christen, as does the Lord God, that men and women of violence are able to rationalize that violence. In fact, Aethar Christen is guilty of this himself, as you no doubt have noticed.
How did you come to find air?
Oh yeah, and he describes a similar story that you've heard before from the other cultists you've had. He was a dirt farmer peasant in Darkhan with very few prospects, living in terror from day to day. His liege lord was wiped out by God knows what. Vampire attacks, vengeful ghosts, could have been any number of things. He's an old man, had no family left, scraping by in the hovel, and Christen and some of his entourage came by, gave him food, shelter, saw that he was an educated man, and began teaching him the ways of God.
And why do you keep this faith and embrace it so strongly now?
Because
After all you have seen.
air brought warmth to his life when there was none before.
In what form is his worth?
What form of this is warmth?
What is his worth? Why does he see his life as worthy now?
He thinks about that for a moment. He says that he does not believe any one person's individual life has worth. There is no value in one person existing. It is in finding value with others in a shared belief structure that can make positive change. That is where the value lies. That is why he loves God and he loves Aethar Christen.
So your faith and belief in air stems from your relationship with these others that you associate with.
It's not quite as philosophical as that. You have to keep in mind, this guy was on the verge of death. A cleric rolled up, told him God exists, God gives me powers, then demonstrated those powers. This is where a cleric in D&D is much different than on Earth, because clerics can actually demonstrate they can do the miracles they say they can do. So it's a lot harder to deny God's power in the face of that kind of thing. This is the C-3PO gambit.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't know what. I think we should hear from what Ekon. I think we should let Ekon debate the theological stuff.
I don't think we should debate anything. I think we should let's have this guy explain what he thinks that we should believe. What does he believe, and what does he think we're doing incorrectly?
Like, I want to know what he want. Like, and
Yeah, I mean, under what auspices did you actually come to us then? Because
Like,
the rest of Christen's devotees have mostly seen fit to bring fire.
And he, at mention of that, he says in no uncertain terms, he is capable of bringing fire. He has brought fire in that sense. He can cast spells, is what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
He's chosen not to, because he sees that that's not productive. Christen doesn't believe any of you can be brought to bear. He doesn't believe any of your minds can ever be changed. That's why he's decided it has to be fire.
So have you come to try and convert us then?
He says
Short.
that if you're asking him his ideal outcome, he suggests that Ekon immediately surrender his vestments and auspices and title of Aethar, and that the rest of you relinquish your wealth of the village of Silverbow, that you bring down the bricks of the false church that you've built here, and go in peace.
And what is the other end of the spectrum?
What do you mean?
If we decide that we don't wish to go that way, what do you have in mind?
He shrugs a little sadly. Says one does not compromise with God.
Will you bring the fire, or will you just wait for Christen to come to us?
Myself, Aethar Christen, God himself, fire will come.
Victor just sighs.
So, I don't understand. I have a question for you, Brick Road.
Yeah.
This whole does like, what is it just like the same like difference in belief as it was in the in before we got to here that is fueling this, or does he think that we have done does Kristen think that we have done something particularly bad since we got here?
Kristen thought that before you all left Brennan.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is this something new, or is it the same thing?
It's difficult to say because you haven't.
Axes grinding.
Yeah, it's difficult to say for sure because you guys haven't spoken with Kristen in years.
Right.
Whether this is him, he's clearly found some level of power since he's been here. Whether it's because he remains a fanatic, or whether it's because he has seen this as a path to his own personal power in some way, impossible to tell.
So, I have a question for you then. Like, if my cousin can also call the power of air
Mhm.
and all this, then what is, like, who do you believe?
Are you
Right?
asking friend?
Yeah, I'm asking him.
Friend tells you that this is a key difference he's come to learn between living in Darkon, having grown up here for some 50, 60 summers, versus growing up in the Republic that he's only heard scraps of tales of. In that, in Darkon, calling upon miracles, as Ekon and Kristen call them, is very common. Many people, many things that are decidedly not people, can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So Ekon demonstrating some magical ability would not necessarily be enough to prove to him or anybody that this was the act of God, for the same reason that Jeannie producing a magical ability from one of her Artificer things would not be.
It was proof enough for him to follow the other guy.
You point that contradiction out to him?
Yeah.
What else
I'm
did
like
Kristen do?
just asking him, but it was proof enough. So what you're saying is if Ekon had been the one to stumble upon you, and we have saved a lot of people. So if Ekon had been the one to stumble upon you, you would be having this conversation with Kristen.
He thinks on that for a moment. He nods. He accepts the possibility.
So,
But Ekon did not save him. Kristen did.
all I know is that your people came into the center of our city. They murdered people, which is a genial site, whatever stricture that is, and which is a offense, and then proceeded to summon a demon.
And he points out the contradiction in your own views. You think that's wrong when Kristen did it to your village, and yet you had no difficulty going to Lord Randus' village and doing it there.
We didn't summon a demon in Lord Randus' village, thank you very much.
We also did not start we did not attack first in Lord Randus' village. We were defending ourselves.
The distinction doesn't seem to make much difference to him. The story as it has passed since that time. You guys went to that village and there was great death and destruction.
Victor will sort of kneel down to get eye level with him, or squat down.
Well, you don't have to. He's sitting on a chair.
Well, yeah, if Victor's standing up, so he's gonna squat down to be eye level.
Okay.
And he's basically going to tell him that all these philosophical arguments on anyone other than with Kristen, they just don't seem like they're going to go anywhere. It seems like if you truly wanted to, I don't know, try to change our minds or have a conversation about faith, it should be between Ekon and Kristen himself. Do you know where we could find him to arrange such a conversation?
He says he believes that if he told you that information, he doesn't trust your words. He says he believes that you would go and kill him. He doesn't say this with any malice. He doesn't say it with any accusatory tone of voice. It's to him, he knows that this is a very, very violent house and that you will kill to get what you want. And right now, there's beef between you people and his boss.
I just don't see how this goes anywhere without actually talking to Kristen.
If he is just like, if this had just been between us and Kristen, I think maybe you might have had a point. But the second you and your people started bringing like separate part, basically she's saying that the second they started trying to blow up, the second that their collateral the collateral damage started happening, they lost any moral high ground that could have possibly existed.
And he points out that his people feel exactly the same way about House Veritas. That you do not see your own actions over the past 2 years as having caused any collateral damage. Just shows friend that perhaps you're wearing blinders, the same blinders that you say Kristen is wearing.
She makes a chopping motion and she says, "We're very aware of any collateral damage that we've caused."
Then you are aware that in some cases it is, if not desirable, perhaps unavoidable.
Victor starts listing off all the collateral damage that House Veritas has done.
A parchment rolls across the floor and out the door, and
he keeps track of all that with his guilty.
Collateral damage is never. What did he say? Preferable? It's never preferable.
It's never desirable, but sometimes unavoidable.
It's never desirable. And while it can be unavoidable, you must make efforts to minimize it. And no efforts have been made.
He disagrees. He thinks Kristen has taken great pains to ensure that innocents do not die in this fight. That's why he arranged to have you all ambushed on the road, miles and miles away from the village. And only when that failed did he realize he had to put agents in the village itself.
You say that, but if we were to be slain in the middle of the village, what would happen to the village? What would happen to the lives inside the village? There's plenty of collateral damage from every action.
Victor, I think you and I should bow out of this conversation because I don't think he's going to ever agree with this. And then Jeannie looks at him very unfavorably and then says, like, you can't argue with this.
Ekon, make me a religion check.
Yeah, let Ekon do it.
That's a religion of
+5.
17.
Okay. Watching Jeannie and Victor dance with this guy, to say he's enjoying the conversation would be overstating it. This is not a pleasant experience for him at all. But even if you were able to convince this man of what Jeannie and Victor were saying, it wouldn't make any difference because this is not the guy you need to convince.
Yeah.
Victor will nod to Jeannie. He'll stand up and put a hand on friend's shoulder and say, "I like you, friend, but I just don't think we're going to agree." And then he'll walk out with Jeannie.
Okay.
Jeannie's not walking out, but she's is done with the conversation.
She's slamming the door and locking it behind Victor. Whew.
So yeah, Victor's gonna leave and go.
She's gonna pretend like she's gonna walk out after you, Victor, and then she closes the door and locks it. Well, I'm glad he's gone. Woo!
Victor is gonna leave and go start to check around the town to see if anybody's creeping up while we're all distracted by this guy.
To make sure there weren't like other cultists in the village.
Not just in the village, but mounting on the outskirts of the village while we're all distracted. So you're gonna go double check the guards and make sure everyone's on the lookout.
Oh, I had asked, what information did you send the Vistani after? And then
the main thing that he was looking for with the Vistani was, have they seen specifically Kristen, but also where his followers have been gathering, or what have they seen of his followers? Basically, any information about himself and his followers.
I think you asked where the location of that village was, where they were last seen.
I have that.
Yeah, as well as that.
Noted down. Yeah, I was about to resolve that, and then you were not at the table for a second. I'm assuming you're playing Final Fantasy XIV in another window.
I might have been. I don't know.
Okay, then yeah, I'll resolve this Vistani thing in a moment here. Is anything else happening with Friend in the cell?
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
What do we do with him?
Well, he just confirms with Ekon then that Ekon has no no compuncture to relinquish his vestments and title and abandon his cathedral. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Evie will say that, theological discussions like this do not interest her very much. Someone has threatened her family and her people, and it is her obligation to respond. And that's as far as it goes.
Friend thinks it's very sad that the decrees of God hold no interest in Evie, and that's part of the problem. Evie should be singing God's praises in the streets and leading all of her people to do the same. And the fact that she's not doing that...
You simply disagree with the way we do it. There are many happy people here who have found empowerment and happiness in the light of air.
I think that's actually not true. I think everybody is on the Heimdall train.
Friend doesn't say that specifically, but it is true. You've got maybe like a 40% conversion rate of true believers, and the remainder are paying lip service. And a lot of, especially recently, a lot of the air worship in town has been bent towards. I had to beat my son because I heard that he said a bad word, and I don't want air to set my house on fire as a result of his sins, kind of stuff.
Heimdall doesn't make you beat your child.
What gives these people happy lives and productive lives is that you built walls around them and train men to guard them.
I mean, Ekon at the end of this conversation, Ekon will simply say, "Well, I don't feel there's any common ground, and I don't know there's much left to be gained by this discussion. Unless you have any interest in bringing a message back to us for Chrism, I would suggest that you leave. I can make sure that you have safe passage out of the village, and beyond that, I would suggest you do not approach any of our other settlements."
He says that if you would accept his word, he does give you his assurance that nothing you've told him could essentially be used against you in Kristen's eyes. Kristen has already bequeathed fire to this village, and he's not going to stop. So you can't make the situation worse by turning Friend away.
If we let you go, where would you go?
Back to the Aethar? Back into service?
Personally, I would prefer that he remain here under guard.
Is this not against the tenets of air? To hold a man who has committed no crime? To deny me my freedom of travel and passage and enterprise?
Yeah, I said he could leave as long as he's willing to swear that he's not going to commit violence on anyone along the way out.
Oh, he gives his word. He has no desire to commit violence himself.
If we let him go, then we're going to have to confront him again when we face Chrism.
Possible.
Yes, and if we keep him here again, I actually agree with that. It is against the tenants.
His only crime is that he was wearing a red robe in the wilderness.
He's wearing the uniform of a cult that has attacked our people.
Okay.
And he's sworn that he won't attack us again.
Yeah, I don't think this guy wants to do violence, but...
Victor's not there.
So are you returning his stick to him?
Yeah, if I have his word.
Okay, and giving him safe passage out of the city?
Unless someone else tries to stop me from doing that, yeah.
Evie doesn't feel good about it.
Brother, I disagree with this course of this is said in private, but
Sure.
brother, I disagree with this course of action. But I will respect your judgment. But I disagree. So I want to be honest with you.
Anything else with friend? Victor,
I got nothing for him.
One of your Vistani contacts. You find him lounging about in a public house in the village. And yeah, he says he has some choice information to you. So choice, in fact, that he feels perfectly good charging triple his usual rate.
What's his usual rate?
We're going to say he wants 12 gold for this nugget of information.
Victor will slide into the chair, relax a little bit, shrug and say, "Why am I not surprised?" And then he'll toss over 12 gold.
That's a little racist to stereotype the Vistani like that. You're not wrong.
He's been associated with them long enough that he knows how they work.
He weighs the bag of gold. He says, "I trust you so much, I'm not going to count it." As he packs it into his own saddlebags. Here's the bit of information. He and his people have some immunity to the memory and mind warping effects of living long term amongst the mists. How your villagers, their memories will change over the span of months, things that should take lifetimes to accomplish, like, oh yeah, that village was always there, kind of stuff. His people have never been aware of a place called Heidenglost. However, there are villages in far-off stretches of Darkon, far beyond the reaches of Eevie's borders, where they had recently heard stories of just such a place.
So what happened is Aslan grabbed Kristen around the same time he grabbed us and gave Kristen a fiefdom.
Potentially.
When he describes what Heidenglost is, actually, I feel like with my other 4 players, I would safely give this information out, but I'm going to make Victor roll a religion check. Make this at advantage.
Victor has talked himself out of common knowledge.
I feel like if anybody in this party doesn't know basic tenets of...
The Lord for advantage. Religion.
Okay.
Trying to remember if I'm proficient in that one. I don't think I am.
Well, then it's just a standard intelligence check.
Yeah, it's the 23.
Okay. The structure of Heidenglost, the way he describes it, sounds like an impossible structure built out of glass. Glass is a great material, but you can't build big structures out of it. However, as he's describing it, you realize he doesn't have a frame of reference for what it's actually built of. He's describing something more akin to the Crystal Tower of Etherine mythology. This is an ancient structure that the villagers in the area has claimed has always existed up in the hills, looming over them. It is a haunted, terrible place that they avoid at all costs. It's known to be swarmed with monsters and desecration and all kinds of superstitious mumbo jumbo. But this is a place where your Vistani contact confirms to you that red-robed people have lately been flocking to in some numbers. He thinks that whatever haunted evil has been going on at Heidenglost is now under new management. It's been brought to bear. He can give you directions, but this is not within Eevie's borders. This is a good, like an excursion there and back. We're talking a significant chunk of the year to get all the way out there and back again.
So is it basically in a different realm of... It's not in Darkon
No,
itself?
it's in Darkon. Darkon's
Oh, it
just
is?
incredibly massive.
I thought you could get anywhere in Darkon within 2 weeks if you knew the way.
That's what we were told.
Maybe he doesn't actually know the most concise way.
That is what you
So-
were told.
So question. We have the is that coachman and that coach still here? Like he came and stayed, right? Maybe we can get him to take us. That way it'll only take 2 weeks.
Who's here?
The coachman who drove us out here to begin
I
with.
think his name was Goroshu.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
He was one of Aslan's retainers.
okay.
Anyway, okay, so it's a giant crystal tower in Darkwood, swarming with monsters and bad things.
Yeah, this is a bad place.
And it's very far away.
Very far away.
How
And
many
if you ask amongst the villagers here or even anywhere in your realm, this is not a thing that anybody's ever heard of.
And the Vistani thinks that this is something that recently appeared because it wasn't here before.
This is another ancient ruin that has sprouted up from the nature of Darkon itself.
No, I think Kristen built it.
Does he know of anybody that may have better directions there than he does?
Nope. And he and his people are not inclined to lead you there either, at least not for a measly 12 gold.
Well, of course not. I wouldn't insult you by doing that.
He's glad to hear that you wouldn't insult him.
Didn't we talk to someone who, like, if you ever need this time to take you somewhere, just mention my name and they'll do it?
I have to check my notes, probably.
I think that happened after we left the Squelcher Lord's lands. Madame Marilla, that was her name.
Yeah, she gave us the fine Barovian wine.
Yeah, Victor will bring that up and ask if he knows Madame Marilla.
At that, his demeanor changes a little bit. He thinks perhaps the Madam's Varudo could be persuaded to take you to Heidenglost at a more expedient rate.
Now we're talking.
Is this a request you are making of me?
You know what? I think it is, but I also know it won't be free.
At that, he picks up the wine glass on his table, drains the remainder of it in one gulp, sets it down, slides his feet back into his boots, puts his cap on his head, says, "My friend, I will set out with all haste." And he offers you his gloved hand.
Victor will do the Vistani customary thing in that situation.
Okay.
The secret handshake.
I guess. I'm not going to take a chance.
I think
They probably tell people they have a secret handshake.
you just
but they
start
don't actually.
French kissing him right there in public, like really
Yeah,
softly. Okay.
full body caress, full tongue, yeah.
He doesn't give you your 12 gold back.
Oh, no, that's fine.
All right. Ekon.
Hmm?
Roll me a d4, please.
You got it. The 4.
Nice. Which 4 structures in your village are now on fire?
Let's go with a granary.
We'll actually mark them out on the map so we know. Because we're going to have to know which direction the fire is spreading. And
I'll get up to that.
In the village or outside the village?
Oh,
somewhere on this map. I mean, it's all your village. Just some people aren't inside the walls.
Clock tower.
Victor left explicitly to go make sure the guards were on alert for any activity and stuff still gets set on fire.
Oh, don't worry. This is a couple days later. Yeah,
Oh,
this
okay.
is-
Okay.
This gatehouse. The large common hall that we built when we first got here. And the manor.
Okay.
Manor,
Goats are safe.
you could have picked anywhere in the village, but you picked the manor.
He picked the manor, the front gate, and the granary. Like,
What side are you on?
this is the man who wanted to go to Pandemonium. So,
Yeah, notice how the church is still intact?
All right, let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break there.